Welcome everyone to this week's Goverlan Magic Hour. I guess that's the name we've picked lately. We're not going to make it an hour today, but we will be talking about file and folder management, some file and folder management tricks. And because I guess just the way Goverlan communicates with machines using a single configured by you firewall port with our own file sharing, there's some really cool stuff that you can do in terms of managing files and folders on your users' machines. And so it's a really good topic. There's a million different applications for this. I think we listed some in just the invite, but like they become all different with all levels of obscurity, from getting directions from higher ups that, hey, we need to make sure this link is on every user's desktop, or this file is accessible to everyone, or something like that, or maybe go and clean up this file from all your users' desktops. So there's a ton of different applications. And I guess in its simplest form, file and folder management can be handled through remote control. Remote control includes drag and drop file transfer. So I have a little test file on my desktop here somewhere, on my really messy desktop. Let's just see if I can find it.
Right here.
Oh, there we go. So I'm just going to move that up here so we can keep an eye on it and we can get this out of the way. And so I guess in our simplest form, we have drag and drop file transfer. I can grab that little test file and I can designate drop zones to drop it into. And your drop zone designations right up here. You can add new drop zones. You can tell us, you want us to go into this specific local path. And so all drag and drop. So if I decide to drop it in the Goverlan folder or on the system root or somewhere else, I can do so very easily. Even I guess cooler than that is if there's no logged in user on this machine. So we can actually go out and log out the logged in user. So I'm just going to hit log off over here. And so now we're going to be at a machine that has no current logged in user. So we're just at the start screen here. By the way, is that what the screen is called? The start screen? Is that
the logon screen?
The logon screen? Okay. I sometimes don't know the official terminology. So in here, I can grab this Goverlan file manager. Right, Goverlan File Manager will let me still transfer files and folders, but the cool thing here is I can actually drill in and I can go to users here, and then I can decide that I want to drop this file on a couple of users' desktops. So I'm just going to grab it and drop it over, and you'll see a little success failure thing. So now it should be on Aaron's desktop, and we're going to, oh yeah, and if we just hit refresh here, it should show up.
Go back on.
So now if we navigate back to Aaron's desktop, no, sometimes it doesn't register, but it is there. We can drop it on a couple of others as well.
Close it open and see if you just need to.
Sure. I think it's because there's no user logged in that it doesn't always recognize that the file is there. And there you go.
No, what happened was that when you spawn the file manager, it queries all the contents, puts it in, you have to requery.
Right, right. So we're going to just drop it in one or two more here. So again, you can see very simply, I'm just grabbing that test 1, 2, 3, and I'm dropping it into a couple of users' desktops. Now, if we log back in as Aaron, we should see that file right on his desktop. And if we log in as any one of those other users, it should appear on their desktop as well. And so here it is, right? So even when there's no logged in user, I can transfer a file over to that machine, and I can open up and browse through all the files and folders on that machine. And with the right permissions or privileges, I can even manipulate them, do things like that. And I guess that's the really simple part, drag and drop file transfer. It really doesn't get any easier than that. Is there kind of a size limit to files I can transfer this way, or no? And everything's going over compressed and encrypted like other communications.
Yeah, it's going directly over the the Goverlan protocol communication channel, which is 256-bit AES encryption.
Okay, so I think that sets us up for something a little bit more complicated. So now, I guess our first use case, and I'll just do a soft handover to you because I know these next 5 you're going to just run through for us. So I guess the first use case is this test 1, 2, 3 is on a couple of users' desktops, and we want to know who has test 1, 2, 3, right? Is that kind of it? So we are going to be switching over to the Goverlan console now. Do you want to start on the in here, or where do you?
Yeah, well, where do you like to start?
Okay. And we have our file and folder management tricks, each one of our custom actions built out. Victor was nice enough to put these together for us. So why don't you take it from here, Victor? I'll give you control.
Okay, so basically, right now we are in the Goverlan Objects Manager, and these are where we're going to set up some custom actions. And in a nutshell, a custom action is basically an action that you put together that you can use either in scope actions or in administration and diagnostics. In this case, a custom action can be used directly. I mean, the custom action will appear under every single machine that you search for inside of administration and diagnostics. And in this case, you can see we just came under this machine here, Longhorn 3, and you can see our custom actions appear down here below, and they'll appear under every machine as well. So now the first thing we want to do is we want to talk about scanning for the existence of a file / or a folder using wildcards in place of a username. Anything you want to see on that?
Well, yeah, so I guess it's exactly like what we just did. So if you saw, like when we were dragging files and we were dragging that test 1, 2, 3 over, we dropped it on a couple of different users' desktops. And now we basically want to query which users have test 1, 2, 3. Now, there's so many use cases for this. So like I was literally within the past couple of days helping some folks with doing some deployments that needed a configuration file. And I think that that's a really nice use case, is let's make sure that this configuration file is in place and it's the latest up-to-date one and stuff like that.
Yeah, and in this case, what we're doing is we're using administration and diagnostics. So even though you can select multiple machines and run actions on them if you like, you know, administration diagnostics is more of your one-to-one solution. So in this case, we're just going to go to one machine, Longhorn 3, and we just want to see if that test 1, 2, 3 file is on there. What were we connected to before? It was 3 or 2?
Yeah,
it was 3. All right, so here I'm going to open this custom action so we can see how we built it. And the first thing we did is we came up here to add or remove. We have our 3 different actions. And obviously, we just want to report and see exactly where this file is. So we're just going to come here to report computer property. We'll go to file system. These are all pre-populated ones that we just created, but we'll just click manage accessible directories, because if you haven't created any, this will be empty.
So if you haven't done any of the file path stuff before, this section is going to be empty. We actually went and created these different paths, so you can get a look at some of the different ideas, but we're going to be using the all users desktops, and you can see, go for it, Victor.
No problem. So once you go ahead and click the little green add button, you can see here that we're specifying a local path that we want to query. And in this case, we're using C users, and we're using a star as a wildcard. And then we're using desktop, because that's the general folder, and then another star for any of the objects that are on that desktop. Now, you can definitely use and include subdirectories, but just keep note that we have to kind of assume what content our users could have, because some users could have a desktop folder with one folder in it and it has a huge hierarchy. So we have to try to keep in mind, you know, how much folders we're trying to query when it comes to, you know, using wildcards, because you can get real deep. Even if you go to C Windows, for example, and use a wildcard, you know how far down the directories go in the Windows folder structure, should we say. So here we put in that path, and then here we're not going to include any subdirectories because we want just the desktop directory itself. So we won't check that. And then we'll put a name for it. In this case, all users desktops. And that's pretty much it. Now, once we went ahead and add, I'm going to delete these here. Once we added those accessible paths, we'll come back in here. We'll go to report, and now that path will appear here. And now we're going to tell Goverlan what is it that we want to report. So what I want to report is the parent directory path, so we can see the full path extension, and we want to see the name of the file. Now, right now, if I run this report without setting a specific condition, right here I'm going to delete, it's going to return to us every single file that's on all of the users' desktops. In this case, obviously, we don't want that, so that's where we're going to have Goverlan do a lot of the work for us. We're just going to come here to the bottom area, which is the condition area, and we're going to tell Goverlan, hey, report to me the parent directory path and the name of a file, and we're just going to come here and go to add remove set computer condition, back to the same area we've been working with, the file system, all users' desktops as well, and the name. And then we're going to make it equal to test123.text. So we're telling Goverlan, give me the parent directory path and name of the all users desktop file name, which is equal to test.123. And you can do a range of different things, like doesn't exist or begins with, just in case it's in a complicated file that begins with the same type of beginning, for example. And we just go ahead and hit OK. And that was pretty much it. We hit OK again, and now this action appears on every machine. Simply double click it. Once we hit yes, it's going to go ahead and generate the report for us. And as you can see here, we have the instance name, which is what it found, the path, and the name again itself, because this is what we were looking for anyway. So we don't have to include the name if we don't want. But as you can see, it was Ezra Charm, A. Woods, and A. Brock. They had the test123 file on their desktop. And that's how we were able to just use Goverlan to scan for a specific file using wildcards.
Sure. And again, a lot of applications for this. We even mentioned some malware applications where you want to make sure like a specific corrupt file is not sitting out there. You want to see where it exists, stuff like that. So now that we've found these files, I guess the next logical step would be let's find a way to delete them.
Yeah.
Right. So go ahead.
So basically, in this case, we're going to be piggybacking off of somewhat the same area file system that we were using before. So I'm just going to come here and go to properties. Now, deleting multiple files using wildcards in place of usernames can be used against a range of issues, whether it be, for example, a virus malware cleanup, like those crypto viruses that they rename your files, or there's one specific file in different locations on the machine that you want to see where they're at, and you have to delete them all at the same time, because if not, deleting one, it'll replicate, and so on and so forth. So you need to be able to catch them all at once. Or, for example, stale file cleanup. So in this case, we basically, I'm just going to delete this. We're going to come here and hit add remove. Now, we don't want to report. We basically want to perform an execution against the machine. And what do we want to do? Same thing. Go back to the same area, file system again, all users desktop again. And the only thing we're going to see here is delete a file instance or delete a directory instance. Now, in this case, you can see the little bubble that pops up and it says, delete the file instance on this computer. Warning, this action must be used with a condition. If no condition is specified, this action will be executed against all instances. So you can go ahead and delete every single file on the desktop if you like, but in this case, we don't want to do that. So here, a little window is going to pop up, and the only thing we're going to specify is what permissions we want to use to delete this file, because remember, we're tapping into local user profiles here. So each user profile has their own permissions, and sometimes, unless you're a local admin in the machine or an escalated admin like a domain administrator, you won't be able to delete those files. So in this case, I know Ezra is one of our lab domain admins, and we have the run as type options. So here we can see we can run it as a system, remote user, run it as me, which is number 2, which we're going to leave it at, or we can run as specified, which we can specify a domain admin if we like. And then down here, we simply specify what instance we want it to delete. And it's somewhat the same again with the condition. It's the same exact condition. Computer system, file system, all user desktop name is equal to test123.text. And then the second thing we're going to do is we're going to add another action to this same custom action, and basically Goverlan executes these in order. So once this top one is done, it'll go on to the next one. And basically what we're going to do is we're just going to create a confirmation report. And we're going to report and look for the same exact file on everyone's desktop, which was basically the scan for the existence of the file, but just we threw it into this same action. Just double click it, hit yes, and as you can see, all actions have been executed successfully, and let's see if we get a report.
you will get a report, but it's just going to show you that the files that it's going to successfully delete. So when you run it one more time, it's not going to be able to find those files anymore. Now it's going to tell you that there's no included information. So it did indeed delete those files, and we can just confirm that quickly, and we can actually just have some fun. You can see test 1, 2, 3 is gone. And if you want to watch this happen live, because I like doing that, we can do that as well. So we can drop it back onto, will this drop it onto its desktop? It will, right?
Well, that's actually...
It's not the transfer folder.
Yeah, if you click on that, because you change the drop zone is for actual folder, you can change that, but just...
Is that where it went? Yeah, it did go there. Okay.
It's because of your drop zone. You want to change it to all users desktop. Continue. All right.
So there, it's there, right? And so we are just going to just run that one more time, the delete step. Oh. What are we doing here? Here we go. Here we go. I think we're making headway. Maybe not. No, I got you. Okay, here we go. Delete. Gone. Okay, so we know that it does work. We can see it happen, and we know we can clean up files and folders really nicely and quickly. These things happen really fast using Goverlan, and I think that's some of the cooler things that we offer. So I guess the next step here is let's restore a file or get a file onto a user's desktop, right? Is that kind of what we're doing here?
Yeah. So now we're changing up the scope from in place of multiple usernames and wildcards, and we're just going to change the scope to a logged-in active session user. So in this case, that's this third action here. And what we want to do is there's sometimes where you want to be able to transfer a file or a folder onto your current logged-in users as opposed to everyone. So here we're going to double-click this action. And the action we're going to be working with is execute computer action, file and directory actions, and transfer a file. As you can see, we have different actions here. Copy, move, or rename a file. By the way, I highly recommend you always look at the little help button, the little bubbles, because you can see that the copy, move, or rename is use this action to copy, move, or rename a file on the remote machine. In this case, we want to use transfer a file, which is use this action to transfer a file from your local system to the remote system. So we'll go ahead and select that action. And then we can select a source path and a destination. Now, in this case, we're not going to use a local path on our machine. We're going to use a network path. And thankfully, Goverlan does use and does handle direct network path, which is the standard, whack machine name, whack the folder name. So in this case, it's going to be our network server, our file server, and we want to basically transfer the Goverlan URL. So that's it right here. So you basically just insert the source as / server name, and you have to put the file name there as well. Now in the destination, we want to basically transfer it to the logged in user's desktop. So how we're going to be able to do that? Using dynamic value definitions. So dynamic value definitions are basically variables and static information that Goverlan, using all of its features, is able to query off of any given machine or user. Now, us as techs, we can get that data and manipulate it and use it for our advantage, for example, in this case. So here, I basically want to use the logged in user. So in here, we're just going to, let me just delete this and start from scratch. So we're going to do C users. And in this case, we're going to go ahead and hit insert. And now we get all the same static data that Goverlan can query. And we come down here to logged in users. And we have a whole bunch of information on this user. In this case, it's going to be the account name because we know Windows gets the username and creates the home folder from. And we're just going to do / desktop. And then now here, when you're doing a transfer of a file, you must specify the file name. And the reason why you must specify the file name is because it gives you the opportunity to rename the file if you want to mid-transfer, instead of having to have an extra action that renames the file. So in this case, we're just going to put it's Goverlan URL. We'll just keep it the same name because we don't want to change And by the way, if a folder doesn't exist and you want to transfer it into a folder, you can do it that way, and Goverlan will automatically create that folder if it doesn't exist. Cool. In the sense of, you know, and then you can even use a dynamic value to create its own folder name. So you can even hit insert, and you can do
put in like the user's name
or current date and time, for example, and then it'll use that dynamic value, that static data, and insert it and create it itself. It's basically, you know, Goverlan variables, you can say. And that's it. So in this case, we're doing C users. We put NT account name, which is a logged in user, by hitting the insert button, and desktop Goverlan URL. And then we're going to overwrite the existing file and hit OK. And this is.
So let me stop you for a second, because just recently talking to some other folks who were looking to transfer data from production server to their backup environment on a recurring basis. Mm-hmm. So would this be, I guess, an effective way of doing it? Because it looks to me like I can grab the source file path and then I can transfer it to that backup location and append the date to the file name, or change the file name to the date, or something like that?
Exactly. Right now, we're our custom action, we're currently under Longhorn 3. So you would just, you know, specify your backup server, right? You would find the backup server in administration and diagnostics, and you would run the same action, which obviously the source would be whatever your initial server is. And then the destination is the machine that we're currently under, which would obviously be your backup server.
Okay.
And that's the way you do it in a one-to-one.
And obviously, we can then go to the next step and schedule that, run it recurring, and all that type of stuff.
That's where we would step into a scope action to create that automated sense that we want from Goverlan.
Cool.
In this case, we're going straight ad hoc, so we're just building everything out itself. And as you can see, that was really pretty much it. Just selecting the source path, which is, you know, your server with file name, and your destination using a dynamic value. And you're telling it to overwrite the existing file. And then we just go ahead and hit OK. OK again. And we can see here, by the way, that the logged in user is currently Aaron Woods. And we also know, according to our remote control session, that there is no Goverlan.url here. So we'll just do the same cool thing you like to do here, Ezra.
Go for it.
And do the transfer.
Oh,
there you go.
All right.
Goverlan automatically went ahead and popped up here. And then we also had a confirmation report in there, which popped up on the other side. And you can see it was desktop, Goverlan.url.
And so now that I did this against one user, using scope actions, I can take that same action and apply it to multiple workstations. So if I want to say, hey, across these 50 desktops, make sure Goverlan.url appears on all 50.
Yeah, and that's where we'll come into the versatility of using action templates. So for example, here we're coming back to the same transfer folder action. Now, as opposed to wanting to run it against one machine, we can run it on multiple in the same OU if we like by simply hitting Control A. We can right click and run it in this own OU here, file folder management. Boom. But in this case, maybe you want to have a couple machines that are in other OUs, so the Control Select wouldn't work for that case. We'll come back here into the action, and we have this blue templates area. So we can simply drag and drop it to the template below. We already have it there, so we'll replace it. And by the way, you can share it with your team. This is the team collaboration area. Any templates that are in here can be shared or enforced upon your teammates, as long as you're all pointing at the same sure data database, which that's all stated in our Goverlan Getting Started Guide, which you can find on goverlan.com/support. So now that we drag the action templates into our template area, you can see we have a whole bunch of other ones, including one that's shared with us from the team. We're going to jump into scope actions. And we're just going to create a new scope action here. Actually, you know what? Let me go back and just copy this whole name here. Copy the controls, add new. We're just going to paste that name.
Okay.
And then we'll hit next. And then in this case, we're going to select a couple of machines. I'll just go ahead and, I have my Longhorn machines. We could do a wildcard search. I'm going to add both of these machines here. Just one because I did it individually. And this one here. And then we can add them by IP range and input file and OU. In this case, we're just going to put 2 machines.
That's fine.
And by the way, this is a scope. The scope is basically what objects you're trying to manage. It has the same type of sharing capabilities as action templates, you just have scope templates. So if you guys have intricate IP subnet ranges, a couple different sites, servers that are in different OUs, you can go ahead and select those and save them as a scope and share them with your team. That way you don't have to do double the work all the time. We go into next, and then we finally have the action modules area. Again, familiar, you can see we have the action templates. We can come back here to transfer a file folder from a network location to a remote machine. And we're just going to drag and drop it here. And now we're going to double click it just to verify that this is the action that we're looking for. We can see everything's there again. We hit OK, and we hit next, and then that's basically it. We saved enough time because we went ahead and just used the action template itself. And then we came here now to what's next. We're going to hit run later. And that's basically it. We just turned from a one-to-one to a one-to-many situation. And then I can go ahead and right-click the scope action and schedule it if I want. So that's where we're going into the automated space from becoming an ad hoc tool and formulating it to our preferences and making an automated tool. And here we just tell it who we want it to run as, in this case, Ezra. I don't know his password. I was just guessing, just kidding. You can type it in.
Well, we don't actually have to run it. I think we proved the point that anything we do against one machine, you can do against multiple. So if you wanted to target 50, 100, 5,000 machines and make sure Goverlan.url is on all of your users' desktops, so it'll get us more publicity, and I'd appreciate that. But you could also do it with other files. So here we're going to move on to deleting a file and folder using dynamic values for active user sessions. So here, I guess the use case is I want to make sure that this user doesn't have this file. Or
yeah, and the reason why, it's basically we're doing the same kind of instance when it comes to transferring a file, but we're just going to do it in reverse, deleting it. So we'll just go ahead and go into this action. And here, we're doing simply add remove, executed computer action, file directory actions, and we're going to delete a file. In this case, we're going to specify the exact file that we want it to delete. So once we select that, we're going to come in here. And then it's going to be the same thing as the dynamic value that we used before. We set the local file path by coming here. As you can see, it's the same exact dynamic value that we had before, and I'll just do it one more time here for you. Insert, and came back down to logged in users again, NT account name, then you hit OK. And as you can see, the guise is somewhat the same. Once you start using Goverlan, you start learning the basics of it, you can start implementing cool little things here and there to make it your own. So in this case, we'll have the file run as type, same thing. You can specify who you want to run it as. In this case, we're going to run it as Ezra. And that's really it. We're telling basically Goverlan to delete any file with this specific name on it that's on the logged in user's desktop. And then we're going to do the confirm file delete as well. And that's it. We just double click this. Oh wait, let's go and do this in here. And then double click and hit yes. And that's all she wrote. And that's it. It's gone. And then again, as you can see, the custom action reported no information.
Awesome. So one more here, copying, manipulating files already located on a remote machine. And the one with adding and removing the Goverlan URL, I mean, that comes up so often also. It's like, people think they deleted the internet. We all have those horrific user stories. So you didn't delete the internet, you deleted your IE icon. And, just having a custom action, just navigate to a machine and restore it in 2 seconds really, really helps quite a bit. So I think that there are a ton of use cases for that, like just being able to restore links quickly, point users into the right direction that way. So copying, manipulating files already located on a remote machine. What's a good use case for this?
A good use case for me, I think, is like for example, like a McAfee config file. I've had clients who basically had McAfee. They have some config file or something like that gets placed on a location on the user's computer, but they want to make sure that it's moved to the proper place.
Okay.
It's a very, specific use case, but basically, in Goverlan, we're so used to either doing transfers or changing something on a specific machine, but we're not really used to, you never have a case where you want to manipulate, a file on a remote machine. And normally us as IT guys, we're just used to just, remote controlling the machine and using the GUI to manually manipulate a file. In this case, we don't have to go ahead and remote control machines anymore. That's kind of being a thing of the past now. You know what I mean? Is, remote controlling machines. That's usually a default. That
we do have a remote control problem.
But yeah, so as you can see, we both have a bias. I'm more A and D is more remote control. So here we're just going to go ahead and we're going to use a specific action called execute computer action, file directory, and we're going to use this copy, move, and rename. And again, specifying what I stated earlier, it's not copying from your machine to an opposite machine. That's where you get the transfer of file action. It's copying, moving, or renaming a file on the opposite machine itself. So in this case, we're just going to go ahead and copy a config.txt file, which is in the C drive, which let me see if it's there. I don't think I created it. But this was a use case where they had a whole completely other system, another app, or just an automated server that was putting this file on their C drive. But they had for some reason, they couldn't put it in the right location where it's supposed to be. So they needed Goverlan to, move it to where it should be. So in this case, let me see if it's here. It's not. So let me just create a quick text file here. You know what? I'm just going to rename this just on purpose. Text. All right. Just make sure that is the extension. All right. That not worked. Perfect. All right, so config.txt. And basically all we're doing is we're manipulating files on the opposite machine. So the source file is on that machine. It's not talking about your own machine, cconfig. And then the destination file path, we want to do program files, McAfee config.txt. In this case, we just used one of our special folder variables that come pre-populated in Goverlan here. And as you can see, it was program files up here. And I just pre-populated it. I popped in the McAfee config. Again, if this folder doesn't exist for any reason, it'll automatically create it, and I know for a fact it doesn't actually. Program files, McAfee is not even here. So this is just another good use case to show how we can create a folder here.
Okay.
Run as type. In this case, you want to run it as you. You can run it as the local system or the remote user. And then see here, delete source file. So this is a good way to see if you want it to be deleted. In this case, I actually want to delete that source file because I know that server is going to replace it anyway. So, and then this case is the run user ID we're not going to use. And that's pretty much it. We're going to hit OK and just hit run. Oh yeah, we should put that up. And as you can see, there's the McAfee folder and there's the config.txt. And we'll come here to C. And we'll see that the config.txt is not there. And this is just a cool way that you can manipulate files on another machine. If you need to rename them, for example, say there are times where you have to, I had another client who had to rename this config file and had another app replace it itself. So you can do little things like that. There's a ton of use cases, but I'm just throwing out things out there that
and you've been naming ones that are very kind of like sysadmin level, because that's your, I guess, more your role. But I was thinking more of, messy desktop syndrome, which, if anybody's been on these demos knows I have. So, maybe creating little actions where you can grab all files that are, I put this out to you and we haven't tested this fully yet, but files that are, docs and moving them into one specific folder, cleaning up a desktop that way. So like a lot of different use cases to manipulate files and folders. And obviously this exact thing with making sure that config file is in the right place in the McAfee folder, we did it against one machine. We can use scope actions to target multiple machines and perform the same thing. Right?
Yeah.
All right. So that kind of wraps up the file and folder management portion. We did want to tease an upcoming release of Goverlan. So what I'm going to show you now is something that's kind of a later stage beta, and we're going to be exposing to some customers, some prospects as well over the next few weeks, and then really. This is kind of the beginning of the next stage of Goverlan, I guess you would call it, right? And so this first thing here is, I guess, what we're calling Goverlan 8.5. It's going to be available soon. And we can definitely get in touch with anybody that's interested. You can reach out to me or contact sales@goverlan.com if you want to take advantage of this and kind of, if you have a good use case for jumping on this quickly, we'll make sure you get access. And so you can see that Goverlan overall looks and functions the same way right now. But what really changed, and this really applies to our existing customers, is the licensing service that is driving Goverlan, the I guess copy protection piece, and how that experience happens. So if you're a customer, you know that when you purchase Goverlan, you purchase a license. You can share that license, but you can only activate it on 2 machines at any given point in time. You can only use it on 1, and it was kind of a cumbersome process. Just to put you on the spot quickly, what percentage of support calls are related to activations and transfers and stuff like that, would you say?
A good chunk of percent, about 30, 40 maybe.
So, overall across the board, that is a considerable amount of time that our customers are spending on the phone with us or emailing us for help in something that we just needed to get better at. And so I think, that's what this first piece is. And so what I want to do is just show you that quickly. And you can see if I click on command now, it looks quite a bit different from probably what you have going on your console. You can see I have all my product information listed. I can see the specific license I'm using. In this case, it's called Suite Department B. You can separate licenses out into different departments. You can see what features of Goverlan I have access to. And we can also see the number of authorized usages and how many are currently consumed, and how many are available. Now, the really cool thing about this next step is that you will no longer have to activate Goverlan on the machine. You can install the admin side of Goverlan on as many machines as you want, just like you can install our agents on as many machines as you want. The difference is you sign in and out of the console now. So let's say you have a pool of, you purchase 10 licenses. If you sign in, if one person signs in, you have 9 available. That person signs out or closes the console, it goes back to 10. So it really makes the allocation and license management piece of Goverlan a lot easier. It really helps for those organizations, especially across our larger deployments where there's not a good handle on allocation of licenses. So here we've changed everything into a pool. You've purchased a pool of licenses, and you can do your license allocation that way. So I want to show you a little bit about what it looks like in kind of the back end, and what the experience is going to look like for our customers. So you can see right from the product, actually, and I just jumped ahead because I had this open, but right from the product, I can access my web portal, which is the licenses I'm able to manage. And this is Suite Department B. You can see right away, and anybody who's using this beta or this version of Goverlan, this is the experience they'll have. They can see the number of licenses they own and the current use. You can see the allocation of those licenses. Now, this piece is huge because I can't tell you how many phone calls we get where people say, like, I installed and activated a license on a machine, but that machine crashed and I no longer have access to it, and I can't transfer the license using the built-in method, and we need to make some changes in the back end. But here I can instantly navigate. I can see here I'm right now logged into 2 sessions using my username, one on Office 102 and one on Office 109. I can decide to revoke a license and add that license back into the pool. And I can also see who's currently consuming my Goverlan licenses. So out of all my techs, who's using Goverlan, where are they using it? I can also manage my users. I can add new users, either standard users or admin users. Now, the difference between user levels is a standard user only has access to consume a license. An admin user has access to pretty much everything. So now the way a standard user would get access to consume a license is the admin would navigate to that license and list them as one of the authorized accounts just by checking them off. So if I check off Gabriel here and hit save, he will appear as a, let my session expire, hang on. He will appear as a standard user under that license. A standard user, again, only has access to consume a license that they are mapped to. So if I add Gabriel as a standard user on this license, just give it a second here, you can see that Gabriel is now there. If I navigate to another license, Gabriel will not be there. And Gabriel won't be able to access any of or consume any of my Department C or Department A licenses either. So I guess really the main goals of this next release were to give us a way, on the customer-facing side, move away from the concept of activating machines. You now purchase a license per user, and it's still concurrent user. You can still share licenses. It's just that only for each license you buy, you can only have one Goverlan session. Some other benefits, I guess, to this is that it really is going to open us up to the next chapter of Goverlan. We're going to be introducing some really exciting things and really quickly. This lets us get onto our own development cycle as well, because we were working with a third-party licensing service. We were kind of having to work with them in terms of our dev cycles. This is all managed and developed by us. So really lets us move on to our own cycle, lets us give, provide better services to all of you folks, and obviously allows a little bit more flexibility in the product. What's that?
Oh, and independency as well.
Yeah, definitely independence. So obviously on Victor's side, this should reduce our inbound support calls. Everything's kind of in a self-service portal, very self-explanatory, all self-managed, and will let us focus on really building out more innovative solutions and products. And yeah, like I said, this is going to be available very shortly. So if this is something you're interested in, you can definitely feel free to get in touch with us, and we'll point you in the right direction. That about wraps up this demo. One last thing I want to mention, and I might get yelled at for mentioning this, and that's that this new licensing platform, there were some stability issues with the last service we were using, which have been almost entirely eliminated. So, I guess for every software developer, instability is something that, makes us crazy and it's never something we want to see, obviously. But, I don't think I've restarted Goverlan in about 3 weeks now. So I think that it's definitely introduced a new level of stability, and I think it's very evident to me, and I think anybody who jumps on this will see that as well. So that is the end of our session today. Thank you all for joining us. Really definitely appreciate it. Hope you can make it to another future demo, and that's about it. Thanks so much. Bye.